What's up, SVSers? We are back with another virtual audiophile happy hour. And of course, I am here with my co-hosts, Larry Magoo, our National Training Manager. Larry, how goes it today?
It's going great, sir. I'm excited to see everybody out here again and hang with the two of you and the people we have joining us.
And of course, our renowned president, Gary Yakubian. Gary, how goes it? Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on and introduce the folks to the show today?
Hello, everybody. I have to say I've been on Zooms all day, and this has been the only one I've been looking forward to. I'm so happy to be with everybody. As we always say, to frame this up, we know it's a weird time out there. In fact, the weirdness of the time is what gave us the idea to do these. It's a coronavirus, and some people are suffering. Maybe you've lost loved ones, and maybe some people are out of work. We know that. We're not making light of it in the least, but we are so happy. It reminds us how much we value all of you, our community, and so happy to be back with you today.
Very well said. And I've already seen people chiming in from Illinois, Michigan, Connecticut, Manila, all over the world in the country. So as always, we appreciate the global presence that we have here on the Happy Hour. It really makes things special.
Very early in the morning in Manila.
That is true. So for those who are first time joining us, and I saw a couple of comments referring to that as well, basically what we do here is we have a couple different topics we're going to talk about. And following on the heels of last episode we did, a lot of home theater setup tips and tricks. And I think we have some spillover from that that we didn't address. So we'll be diving into that a little bit. Throughout the evening, we'll be doing 4 giveaways just at random. My man Vince behind the scenes will be choosing the folks at random, and he will reach out to you after we make the announcement live here on the broadcast and get your information, and we'll take care of you.
We got probably the most positive feedback about the last show we did, just drilling into getting your home theater to sound its best. So we all agreed we're going to do more of that this show.
More geeking.
Yep, we're going to try to get as much. So Larry, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, buddy.
No, I was just saying, more geeking out, man. That's think
what we do.
After.
And we actually have 2 special guests this evening because we're going to offer the home theater tips and trips for setup, but also we're going to be talking about immersive gaming. And 2 folks who will be joining us, one from the SVS family, Keenan Davis, and then also Brad Pipkins, who's the home theater gamer, but we'll give them a proper introduction as we dive into that later on in the broadcast. So unfortunately, Gary, there was a big loss in the music world earlier in the I think it was last week, and I know you had a couple thoughts you wanted to share because it's come up a lot, just in conversations we've all had.
Yeah, 2020 sucks. Let's face it. It's been I mean, one of my kids, when I text my family that Eddie Van Halen died, one of my kids texted back F 2020. And you know what? We don't use profanity on our family text, but that one was okay. I do want to say, we talked about it even on our last team call. But I'll say what Eddie Van Halen meant to me. I'm probably older than the average person on this, and I know I'm older than the average SVSer. In the late '60s, you had these 4 guitar gods, and rock music was everything in those days. You had Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page. And as time went on, 10 years goes by, you start to think that nobody will ever, come close to that. It's not possible because 10 years went by. And then came Eddie Van Halen, who absolutely is in the conversation right there with the greatest of all time. And some people probably think he is the greatest of all time. And I'm definitely of the belief that he is one of the greatest of all time. A big loss, someone special. If you don't know much about Van Halen's music, you can almost pick up anything. But pick up that first album, which they supposedly made. It's just called Van Halen. But they've supposedly made it in like 3 weeks. And just listen to it. It's remarkable, and you'll get it.
Yeah, the story you told me about Beat It, the song that, he provided the riff for with Michael Jackson. I mean, I never knew that. And it was just really illuminating as an artist that somebody, has that talent and, truly a loss. And I've been listening to a lot more Van Halen. Never was the hugest fan, but just appreciating some of the guitar work. Really amazing.
Yeah, and he'll be missed.
Larry,
it hit me. I knew he was sick. And I was telling friends, I knew he was sick, and I suspected he was going to go. And but then when he died, it just really hit me. And it's a big loss.
Absolutely. But we have been into some other things as well in terms of the listening and viewing front. And Larry, I want to kick it to you, and maybe you can share a few of the experiences you've had here in the past couple of weeks.
Well, listening to a lot of old music, kind of bringing back 80s and some crazy 90s music and getting back into that. But as far as watching stuff, haven't watched a ton because I think Gary and I have discussed this. We've been kind of running through what we're
running out. We need
of
suggestions.
But I did watch, there's a new series on Netflix that came out a couple weeks back with Zac Efron called Down to Earth. And it's about him just traveling the world and finding all these cool natural resources and making the world a better place. And what I thought was kind of cool. And so I watched all of those and learned some stuff about food and herbal stuff. And it was interesting.
Well, there you go. Well, I have been revisiting a lot of the, I guess, Halloween-themed classics, and I watched with my family Ghostbusters, which I haven't seen in quite a while, and I just love Bill Murray, and I believe my 4-year-old now going to be the Marshmallow Man for Halloween, so we'll have that throwback reference in the family. I'm pretty excited about that. Gary, anything special caught your attention these past couple of weeks?
Well, first of all, I definitely spent a lot of time listening to Van Halen. Hadn't really listened to it in a while, and it was fun for that and sharing that with my family. So that was cool. I finished rewatching Game of Thrones, which even watching it the second time through, it's pretty cool. And then a person on our last show made a suggestion. In fact, a couple people did. Lovecraft Country on HBO. So I want to ask the SVS community. I watched the first episode. I'm not totally into it. Should I stick with it? I need to know.
I mean, I give it a ringing recommendations for what that's worth. And it's great leading up to the holiday. It's got a lot of spook factor, but you know, if you like sort of that Stranger Things, like intriguing with a little bit more blood and guts, then I think you'll like how Lovecraft Country progresses. But I'll let the team out there make some recommendations as well, because I don't want to, you know,
I'm getting a lot of votes to stick with it.
Well, my kids are downstairs. My two youngest are downstairs rewatching The Mandalorian, getting ready for season 2 in 2 weeks.
Yes, yeah, that one will be definitely on in our household every episode when it airs live. There's a lot of excitement for that here. I also wanted to throw a plug out. We had somebody reach out, and we have a YouTube playlist called our, here we go, SVS Bass Bangers playlist, which is a lot of hip hop music, but I'm going to share the link here in the comments. It's a great, just sort of, I use it to go running to, but a lot of great subwoofer demo music and just bass heavy sort of hip hop and other tracks. So if you want to check it out, I posted the link in there. It's on our YouTube channel. You'll get yourself about, I think it's like 19 hours of listening pleasure there. So you can enjoy that. Nice. So I believe our first discussion topic here, as far as the home theater tips go, is going to be around placement. And I'm going to ask a very specific question first, and then I think we can dive into a couple other things. Somebody had asked in the last broadcast, if you're setting up a multi-channel home theater, you have your center channel, you have your left and right, is there a distance from the center channel that you should have your left and right speakers? And Gary, I'm going to sort of kick it to you here to see if you have thoughts on that. But is there like a right distance from the center channel you should have your left and right front speakers?
Well, the center channel is always going to be in the center. That's I know that's obvious. So you kind of can take that out of the equation. Just put it in the center as close to your ear level height-wise as you possibly can. I would say that what we say for 2-channel systems is also true for home theater. So somewhere between 6 and 10 feet apart is the way you want to go. If you're going to be using your home theater more for home theater and you're going to have more people enjoying it with you, you're going to be less likely to be just you or just you and 1 or 2 other people, then wider is better so that everybody gets that stereo image. But if you're more likely to be just a couple of people, maybe you and your wife or significant other or husband, I should say. I don't want to be. Sometimes it's the woman in the relationship that's the driving force. Then in those scenarios, you want to have it close enough together that there's a coherent sound stage. We talked a bit about sound stage in previous shows. Basically, a sonic picture of what's going on in front of you.
And I think a lot of people know that with a 2-channel system, you're looking for that equilateral triangle. And I saw a couple comments of that. Are you essentially saying that that holds true for the most part? If you have a smaller listening area, but in a larger listening area, maybe that triangle isn't equilateral, and it,
well, first of all, I've heard this equilateral triangle statement. I don't really agree with it. I think it's not always. It's a little bit of, if you really want to pick the best place to put your front speakers, you got to sit in between them and listen. Yeah. I will say that when it's 2-channel, which we certainly are, probably 1/3 of our speakers are placed in a 2-channel environment. In that scenario, you want to be dead center between them, and you need to have them close enough together so that they are creating that sense of a soundstage that is completely connected and consistent. And it may be that it's an equilateral triangle, meaning the distance between the 2 speakers is the same as each speaker's distance to your ears. That may be true, but it's not necessarily true. Trust your ears. Play music that you're familiar with and see if you sense that coherent soundstage, and especially if the singer is suspended at a specific point in space between the speakers, then you know you have it right.
So with that placement also, you have your left and right. They're not necessarily shooting forwards. I guess you have something called toe-in. Larry, you want to talk a little bit about toe-in and sort of the angle and what you use to sort of figure out what that best angle is?
Yeah, the toe-in is when you, instead of having your speakers going straight out into the space, you tend to angle them towards your listening position a little bit. And some speakers really benefit from that, and some don't need it as much as others. Some really need it to create that image you're after. In my house, I don't have any of my speakers towed in, but it's because, as Gary was saying, we have a very large listening space because of the size of my family. And in here, because it's a smaller room, everything's just kind of shooting straight out based on where I could fit it. But if you are in a location where you have the ability to kind of spread your speakers out and put a little bit of an angle towards your listening position, it may create a little bit smaller of a sweet spot if you don't have a lot of people watching and listening. And it can create a little bit different image and soundstage as well. Maybe
a little bit more focused soundstage. Yes. And then the other, with one of our speakers, the Ultra Towers, a slight toe-in, just a little bit of a toe-in, means that those 4 side-firing woofers are all aiming in different directions in the room. And so the bass will be effortless in pretty much any room if you just do a slight toe-in with your Ultra Towers. That's the one speaker that really benefits from a toe-in.
And I'm glad to see this comment. I was actually going to use this for the center channel, but if you have a laser pointer, you can rest it on top of the speakers, and you can see, if it's hitting that main listening position by basically putting, whatever you want there, a person, and seeing if that red dot, hits right in there between their ears. So that's a great tip from One Fast GXP there.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend having somebody sitting there though.
Yeah, you can blind somebody. We're going to get, this will be the virtual audiophile happy hour that gets us all sued.
Yeah. It is more fun to walking back and forth though, and just say, does it look right? Do I have it facing the right direction?
So as long as their hearing works. Yeah. Yes. Hopefully people don't, shoot each other in the eyes with laser pointers. But center channels too, they can be pretty, there's some little tips you can do to get the best placement out of the center channel too. And Larry, you want to share a couple of those tips to get the best sound out of that center channel?
Well, one, don't put it inside a cabinet if you don't absolutely have to. And if you do, pull it as far forward to the edge of your furniture as possible. My room in here, it's funky. So my center channel's way up here on a shelf because that's where it could go with the furniture I had in here. But I do have a slight angle back down into the room. But if you can get it, in and around your screen, directly under your drop-down screen, wherever you're trying to do, and kind of, obviously, you want to have it centered in a room, as Gary was saying earlier. But if you have
I think our friend Jessica is very skeptical about our solution about the laser pointer. do you see her on here on the comments?
I missed it.
And I think she's making a crack. I think I'll let Jessica's words stand on their own. But I will say the laser pointer is a lot of trouble to go to. Whereas just another comment was, I just use a tape measure, and I agree. if you really want to be accurate, probably the best thing is just use a tape measure. And the best thing about that is if you're like me and you're always swapping speakers in and out, you can just put a little tape mark on your carpet so that you only have to do it once, and you can be swapping. Maybe not everybody does it like as much as Larry or I do, but we do it a lot. So we try to make sure we know where the place to.
Yeah, there's tricks using mirrors and all kinds of stuff. I'm lazy. I just kind of look at it and see how it looks, and then listen to it. And if I like the way it looks and sounds, then I'm done.
Yeah, and you had mentioned with the center channel, if it's inside furniture, but also if it's on top of like a piece of furniture, also pushing it to the edge will reduce loading, which is sort of cutting off the signal. So always having that center channel right up against the edge, or even bookshelf speakers, if they're on your left and right and on a piece of furniture, that can definitely help. So one other question we had around height speakers, and if you have very low ceilings, and I guess this applies to surrounds as well, where you can't actually put them at ear level, is there like a proper height that you should have your height speakers, or are they better off on the ceiling? What do you recommend with very low ceilings in terms of surround and height speaker placement? And Gary, I'll kick this one to you first.
Well, we designed the prime elevation for an 8-foot ceiling to just be basically the top of it flush to the ceiling, and just snap it onto the wall bracket. It's really easy to install for you, or if you have an installer, and just aim it down to your listening position. In other words, it's an angled front baffle. You just have the angle aiming downwards at your listening position and as high up on the sidewall as you can put it. And it's, we did that so that we would have a direct radiating height effect speaker that was easy to install. That was the sort of thing that nobody had done before. If you can hang it on the ceiling, which I have mine, I have 2 pairs of prime elevations on my ceiling. If you can do that, if it's not too much of a hassle to do that, that's the best. But as high up as possible on a sidewall aiming down at you, that's what the speaker was designed for.
Good information. And I will also say this is a very well-known one, but if you have your center channel and your left and right, aligning those tweeters is also a good way to optimize the sound. Making sure they're all in the same plane, if you can get them as close to possible, is definitely a good way to go. So I think we owe the people a giveaway now, and we're going to pull from Facebook, and we're giving away for the first. I don't think we announced what the actual giveaways were, so I guess they're all going to be a surprise to people.
We should say it. We should say it.
List them out. Larry, you have them committed to memory this time.
I do. Do you want all 4, or just
I'll say all 4, and then we'll pick one.
Gotcha.
We got a winner.
We're gonna, in this order, I'm hoping. So we're giving away a pair of Prime Wireless powered bookshelf speakers, a PB1000 10-inch ported subwoofer, a Prime Wireless 2-channel 300-watt amplifier, the sound base, and then an SB2000 Pro 12-inch powered subwoofer. So we've got a lot that we're giving away tonight.
Good job, Larry. You got them all right. And our first winner is from Facebook. You are the winner of a Prime Wireless speaker system, Mr. Jeff Marshall. Congratulations, Jeff Marshall.
Congratulations, Jeff.
Behind the scenes to get you taken care of. So with that said, I think we're ready to introduce our guests. And without further ado, like I mentioned, we're going to be diving a little bit into gaming. But our first guest that I'd like to introduce, his name is Mr. Brad Pipkins. He is the content creator and producer, founder of a YouTube channel called The Home Theater Gamer. Brad, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Excellent. Thank you guys for having me so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I am going to kick it back to you to talk a little bit about your channel, but I also have a second guest on the show today, and this is coming from the SVS family, Mr. Keenan Davis. He is our senior director of digital marketing, but he also works for Turtle Beach, which is one of the largest gaming headset companies in the world. Keenan, how's it going? Looks like you run off happy hour for all of us there.
Just to say, it sounds like you said he still works for Turtle Beach. He doesn't. He's with us 100%.
Yeah. I've been an SVSer for 5 years now. Turtle Beach is my sweet history. But yeah, definitely a lot of drinks. Come on over if you want to once COVID's over.
I know. I want to be at Keenan's house.
Seriously. We should have gone and raided that before we jumped on here.
That's the third time he's restocked that shelf behind him since this all started. So.
He's been drinking all day in anticipation of his happy hour.
I have a couple on the floor in front of me as well.
So Brad, I know your channel is sort of a dual focus. It's not just strictly gaming. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then I want to get into some of the things that you've been listening to and find out from Keenan as well. But just quick overview of what you're doing with the Home Theater Gamer channel.
Yeah,
there.
basically, I created the channel because I feel like home theater and gaming isn't talked about in tandem enough. Like, there's a lot of us out there who play games in their home theater, and a lot of people are missing out, and they don't know it. So I kind of put that out there. It's both the two of my favorite hobbies. So yeah, it runs a gamut from everything from REW measurements to talking about PC gaming and stuff.
Well, I hope we can teach some people some things tonight, because I think there's some misunderstandings about what gaming consoles are and what they're not, and so I look forward to that. But I did want to get your opinion.
Used, like I think you actually taught me a lot, Brad, just in our pre-conversation about the possibilities with gaming console.
That is it was very illuminating, and we're going to reveal some of that as we move forward here. But Keenan, tell us a little bit about what happened, when you were working at Turtle Beach there, and some of the experience. And then I also want to hear some of your favorite nostalgic old school video games.
Okay. All right. So I'll go in order. So I've been a gamer. Started out as a gamer all my life, waking up before school, trying to see if I could finish Legend of Zelda before I had to get over to a homeroom. And from there, actually worked for Acclaim Entertainment for a little while. So worked on NBA Jam and used to go I'm from New York, so used to go to Times Square and basically be a ringer and kick everybody's butt in the arcade in Times Square. From then, went to college. A buddy of mine started a video game company, worked with him on that, and then ultimately landed at Turtle Beach a decade or so after college. I went to college in the 90s, so it was a long time ago. That's when my love for audio and gaming first started to come together with the gaming headsets that they made, and we'll get into more of that later about just all the advantages one can have from an audio standpoint when it comes to gaming. And I know Brad has a wealth of knowledge on that as well. But that ultimately led to my path to SVS, where just the love for audio at SVS pulled me more out of my gaming world into audio. That immersion experience was really, really important to me. And so I'm here hanging with you.
Well, we're having fun, and we're hopefully gonna get some converts to the world of home theater gaming. And I had to throw some love to my favorite old school video games. Bubble Bobble and Contra were my first two that I really got obsessed with. And I think there's a lot of people here who probably know the Contra hack to get 99 lives or whatever it was. So I had a lot of fun with that. But Brad, you were throwing out some names that I hadn't thought about in like 20 years. What's some nostalgia video games from you?
Well, I'm not into fighting games anymore, but Killer Instinct was my thing back on the Super Nintendo. I played it in the arcade, and then when it came out on the Super Nintendo, I was just, that was my thing. And then Resident Evil, the original on the PlayStation. Nice. I probably went through that game 7 or 8 times back to back. I mean, I was obsessed.
Yeah. And Larry, I think you have on your console there one of your favorite games of all time, which is still being played live. You want to do a little screen tilt?
You guys know I'm a gamer, if anybody's been watching this, and my kids are too. Whoa, I'm knocking down my microphone here. But I built a whole arcade, if I could point. It's really hard to do that. But I built a whole arcade back here. It's got about 10,000 games on it. I got NBA Jam running right now, and got a PS4 Pro in here, an Xbox One downstairs, my kids' game. This is my retro gaming t-shirt that I busted out for you guys tonight. And I never play with headphones. I'm always doing it with the audio system. So.
And Gary, I asked you earlier, and you sent a picture of your favorite video game of all time. So I'm going to just pop this on
my
screen.
first video game.
Yeah, this was the original here. If I can get it to load up here real quick.
The Rock and
man. Of course, it's taken forever.
Well, let me frame it up. Nick was like, everybody has to talk about their first video game when they were a kid. And I'm like, there were no video games when I was a kid. Sorry. I'm old.
Oh, man. See, it's not loading.
At least I know how to work my Zoom.
Just pretend you see a kid kicking a rock down the street. And that's what Gary used to do.
All right. Well, for whatever reason, I'm just getting a load here. But hopefully it'll pop up here randomly. And while we're waiting I just got some. I wanted to first dive in and get your opinion here, Brad, because I think there's some misconceptions, like I was saying, about consoles are and what they're not. So I'm curious, what your take is on consoles as an entertainment hub, and sort of what that looks like and what people can expect when they buy a modern console.
Well, I mean, with the I think both of the consoles do a pretty good job. I kind of give my nod to the Xbox One X. We're talking about current gen stuff, not the stuff coming out now, just because it has a 4K Blu-ray drive in it, and the PS4 Pro or even the standard PS4 doesn't have that. But in terms of like streaming and everything, they pretty much run the gamut. I mean, Apple TV was just announced that it's coming to, the Microsoft platforms, and you have your Netflix, Peacock, Hulu, basically everything that you could need in one space. Now, does it do it as well as, something like if you were to buy an Apple TV or standard 4K Blu-ray player? No, it lacks some of those more advanced features like, dynamic tone mapping in your 4K player, but it's more of just like an all-in-one device that you can plug in and you have access to everything right there. You don't need, 10 or so separate devices to do all this stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point because it used to be that a console was a console. You played games on it, but the amount of storage that's on them and just the inputs and outputs, everything that you can do with it, really can make it the centerpiece of a home theater outside of like the multi-channel surround sound. And that brings me sort of to the next question. And Larry, I know you mentioned you're a big home theater gamer. What in your opinion does it add to the experience, when you're gaming in a home theater surround sound system?
Well, I think it's more immersion. Headphones can do okay, but even if you're playing a game that's designed for headphones, I've tried both with the headphones and with the 5.1.2 that's here in the room, and I think it's better through the audio system. Not just because I work for a speaker company, but I've told you guys about my experience playing Hellblade in the past, and we can talk about that later if you want, but playing it on a headphone was just kind of boring, but playing with the entire audio experience around me, I talked about how I got chills playing the game, not because it was scary, but it was because I was in the experience, and it was awesome.
And Keenan, I will
say one thing. I'll pass it to Keenan. I'll just say something just really briefly because I'm not a gamer, but I have two sons that are big time gamers, and friends come over, which they still do, even though we're supposedly not supposed to be doing that. Friends come over and they game. The console immediately leaves one of their rooms and goes into our home theater. And what strikes me is that a high-performance home theater can reveal nuances in the sound of the game that you wouldn't hear with just TV speakers, headphones, or lower-end home theater.
And Keenan, I know you have a pair of Ultra Towers and I believe a PC 2000 somewhere in that room. What's been your experience gaming in a home theater?
There you go. There's a tower right there poking out. It's the same thing that both Larry and Brad are saying. Like the difference of gaming with a headset, which I think gaming with headsets are fantastic, but it's just a different type of game. It's more about the communication with the people that you're playing with, so on and so forth. And they do highlight certain things that you might not notice just by listening to your TV speakers, of course. But the immersion experience from any type of surround sound system, 5.1, 7.1.2, whatever it's going to be, is just going to be better. There's just things you can hear from an immersion experience standpoint that you're just not going to get through headphones.
And Brad, I want to take it in a little bit different direction with you and look at it specifically from the gameplay perspective, because I do think everything that you guys said about the immersion is absolutely true. But in playing, like, do you find advantages, or what can you say about, how it actually affects your gameplay?
I mean, I think it affects it positively, personally. I'm not a competitive gamer by any means, and I'm not saying that headphones sound bad with first-person shooters or anything like that. But, when you're kind of in the thick of it and, grenades and stuff are going off around you, playing with headphones, it sounds okay. But feeling that room pressurizing bass and hearing stuff come from behind you and all around you, I mean, I know one of the biggest advantages people say of headphones is they can hear footsteps much easier. And while I kind of agree with that, being able to actually hear exactly where the footsteps are coming from, like, right behind you to the rear left, or, kind of more to the right, I think that's a huge advantage that a lot of people just kind of throw away because, they've been marketed headphones so much.
So have you actually been playing a game where you felt like you had an advantage versus if you were playing with headphones or just with like a soundbar or TV speakers, like a specific scenario?
Yeah, I was actually playing the single player in Call of Duty, and I could actually hear people behind me, and I knew, oh crap, I'm about to get attacked. And sure enough, I turned around, and there were about 3 or 4 people, 3 or 4 enemies that I probably wouldn't have heard or seen or known which direction they came from when using headphones or soundbar.
And Larry, I know you have an experience with like the fear factor that it could create. You know, from some of the experiences which I think you just mentioned. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the game Hellblade, it's on Xbox and PlayStation, and it was recorded in binaural audio. And so it's recorded to sound like microphones are where your ears are. So it was designed for a head. And I played it initially on the system in here. It's all Prime, a 5.1.2 system. And it's about mental illness and the voices this character hears throughout the game. And you would hear it come from my rear speaker over here, or the hide effect speaker over here, or my front speaker here. And I kept getting chills to the point where I was cold. And it was, you know, right when all this started, my wife's asking me if I'm getting sick because I'm sitting there under a blanket. And it wasn't that it was scary. It was just like, it kept putting chills up my back and putting a hair on my neck up. And it was the best gaming experience I've ever had. And, you know, I play a lot of Tomb Raider and God of War and games like that. And that was just unbelievable to experience.
Oh, I think we lost Nick.
Yeah, Nick froze.
I'll try
about you? Yeah.
While we wait for Nick to come back. Absolutely. So headphones can definitely do the virtual surround sound. There's some directional audio aspect that it can mimic and reproduce. But the idea of having hide effects in there and the ability to not only shooting games, but sporting games as well. I used to play Madden with it. And I can, if my quarterback's on screen, I can literally hear if somebody's coming up from behind me about to get a sack, even though that person isn't on screen yet. So there's just different aspects of competitive gaming that a surround sound system, a true surround sound system, just has advantages over headsets on.
That was my bad. Apparently, my player lives just ran out there for a second, but I'm going to make up for it by doing a giveaway now. And our next giveaway is going to be a PB1000 subwoofer. That is, as Larry mentioned, a 10-inch ported subwoofer, adding some serious gaming immersiveness to somebody. And that somebody is from Facebook, Mr. Bill Howard. Congratulations, Bill Howard.
Hey, Bill.
Our new subwoofer coming your way. I'm going to reach out to you. So now I think there's a lot of folks now that we've sort of set the tone for what you can get out of, you know, gaming in a home theater surround sound system.
Everyone's happy you came back, Nick. They thought they weren't going to get prizes.
Oh, see? I just wanted to afford them myself. No, you know what broke it when I tried to show the picture that of your favorite game there. That's immediately when it started getting laggy. So I guess it was just too high tech. But Brad, I wanted to throw this question to you because I think a lot of people who are maybe just getting started, you know, that's the question. Where do you get started if you have a gaming console? You know, what should people know about trying to build an audio system around it? And I think it's sort of different whether you're a PC gamer versus, you know, having it on your general sort of home theater. But what sort of advice can you share with folks who are just getting started?
Well, actually, you know, to kind of echo what you guys were saying, if you're in a space where you have a TV and stuff and your main source of gaming is a console, I think starting with a great 2-channel system with a subwoofer and a receiver that you can build on over time. You don't need to buy everything all at once. You know, start with a 2-channel system. That will, in my opinion, will be a huge, massive upgrade over headphones, just in terms of feeling that energy within the room and being able to pressurize that room with bass. And then if you're on PC, you know, I reviewed the Prime wireless speakers and with the SB1000 subwoofer, and they were excellent. You know, they kind of gave you the best case scenario. You know, if you want a premium audio experience, you know, I don't think, I mean, for the price, they were just an insane value, and they sounded amazing. They sounded a lot bigger than they actually were. But, you know, you don't need to start with that. You know, you could even get a couple bookshelf speakers and a stereo receiver, hook it up to your computer, and that's a great place to start from.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to note that, you know, if you want to build a surround sound system, you don't have to get it all at once. You can start with those front 2 channels, you know, add a center channel, and maybe 2 channels enough. If it's a smaller room, you know, you get everything you need out of that with the subwoofer. But I think those are all important points.
In some ways, Larry, that's even more fun to do it piece by piece. I mean, I've always enjoyed that.
Keenan, you got any thoughts to share on building a home theater audio system, maybe for multi-use? I think that's part of it too. It doesn't have to be dedicated for gaming, and I think that's important point to hit on.
Yeah, I mean, I actually love what Brad said about PC gaming and Prime Wireless in particular. So not to make this a SVS commercial, but getting a really good pair of speakers that'll pair with your I didn't mean to say pair twice, but a couple of speakers that'll pair with your laptop for PC gamers. And PC gaming has some of the best soundtracks and some of the best environments out there in gaming. Will make a world of a difference. I used to be a huge PC gamer. Heroes of Might and Magic almost got me failing out of college because I was so addicted to it. So it makes a humongous difference. So if you are a PC gamer, start with a pair of really good speakers from that front, and then move on from there.
For me, it was James Bond GoldenEye that almost made me drop out of college. But yeah, those were difficult times. And I think it's an important point to note. I mean, we're talking about the console as sort of the hub of an entertainment center. You get a good pair of powered speakers with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity. They can be a music hub. It doesn't have to be just for gaming. You can have that multi-use system, which I think is an important point for people to understand. Now we are on the verge of 2 major console launches this holiday season. And I know you've been studying up on these, Brad, and you're excited about the potential for them. But, what can we expect from these, and if there's anything specific about the audio that you think might be improved? I think people will be interested to know what's on the forefront of the gaming technology.
Well, I mean, with the Microsoft consoles, both the Series S and the Series X, I'm fairly certain they're going to support Dolby Atmos out of the box. Just, we already have it on the One S and the One X. These names are very confusing, by the way. I just get them confused all the time.
I'm trying to memorize them too.
Right. So hopefully we'll see that. And they just added the ability to upmix Atmos from within the console. So if you have something that for whatever reason won't upmix a 5.1 signal, you can actually use the Dolby Atmos upmixer from within the Dolby Access app, and it's all free. Like, you just have to download the app. In terms of like the next gen consoles, though, like I said, the Microsoft console should support Dolby Atmos. I did read some stuff about them potentially supporting DTS:X, but on the Sony side, they're being very tight-lipped about what they're doing. They apparently they have some new proprietary audio format that they're working on. So I don't know if that's just going to apply to headphones or if it's going to come over into the home theater speaker space.
And both will play Blu-rays in 4K. Is that correct?
Correct. And those should both support Atmos because you're just bit streaming that to the receiver or AVR. But in terms of supporting Atmos, we don't even know if the PS5 will do that yet.
So I'm glad you brought up Bitstream because, Larry, I want to know, are you aware of certain settings? And we talked about this a little last week that you should pay attention to when you're setting up your console to get the best sound quality possible.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of people are probably out there have their systems hooked up and have never really dove into their audio settings. And if you've got an Xbox, there's, as Brad was just saying, there's a free app you have to download called Dolby, and it gives you Dolby Atmos for when you're streaming movies and content and stuff, but also when you're playing video games that have Atmos audio, you need to have that app to enable that capability. On the PS4 Pro, you can only get the Atmos for real when you're watching a disc, but you have to go into the audio settings and enable the Bitstream audio, which is a little different from some other consoles and stuff that are out there. But for me, if I have a choice between the two on one game, I always buy it on the Xbox because I prefer the audio.
Yeah, and Gary, I'm just going to give you a chance to say something if you want to here, because I know this isn't your cup of tea, and you had your Red Bull earlier. I saw you, and I want to make sure
I'm in a great place. I'm
learning.
In case you guys didn't notice, I'm not a gamer, but what I really like about this conversation is it makes me want to be more of a gamer because of the. Well, I was saying to Brad, you're not a one-dimensional guy. One of my sons is super one-dimensional in his like approach of gaming, like he's just possessed with it, and it's nice to see you can be kind of a Renaissance man and do a lot of different things with your gaming console. I've definitely seen the excellence of we've gone through Xbox One, PS, whatever the latest one is, and I can hear the difference in sound quality when they get hooked up in our theater. refinement that is possible is really quite remarkable.
So for the next topic, maybe we can draw you in a little bit further to this world. And Brad, I'm going to throw this one to you. I think, everyone knows about first-person shooters and sports games, but it's a very diverse gamer market out there in terms of what's available. Maybe you can share some insights about some of the lesser-known, genres of games, or just, things that you've experienced that maybe people don't understand or think about when they think of, high-performance gaming.
Yeah, what's funny is Larry actually talked about Hellblade, and that was kind of one of them that is a very different game than basically anything I've ever played. Deals a lot with psychology and the mental illness aspect of it, and those types of games are actually becoming more common now because of the success of that. And even some stuff like they have story-driven games that are very heavily focused on story. Something like Until Dawn, which is another horror game, which is a kind of a choose your own adventure. You choose who lives and who dies, and it plays out kind of like a movie, but you're in control of these characters. And they even, if first person shooters and sports games aren't your thing, they do really have something for everybody. Even like No Man's Sky, which is a sci-fi space exploration kind of almost like a Minecraft-esque, build stuff and go and discover. It's really cool. Like you can literally choose any type of genre now, and there's a game for it.
Yeah, it's funny. We worked with a gentleman who works for a company called Wabi Sabi Sound, and they basically do sound engineering for video games. And they designed the game Ori and the Silent Forest, or Ori
Ori and the Blind Forest. Yeah,
Blind Forest. Thank you.
Excellent sounding game.
Yeah, and he actually used one of our SB13 Ultras to help sort of master the audio in that game. But what I found interesting is they've designed that game specifically. It's like a puzzle game, but you had to know which way the wind was blowing in order to find the clue that you could get to the next part of the game. And so to me, that was just like a very fascinating, sort of interesting way. It's not what you would think of a game, but it used the audio in such a clever way that if you didn't have a surround sound system or a proper set of speakers, you would have no idea which way the wind was blowing, and you might not progress as far. So I thought, that was just a very interesting takeaway from talking to those guys.
Yeah, one piece I throw into that is I think people tend to underestimate the amount of time, energy, resources that go into the audio for video games, because you typically talk about the graphics and the visual appeal of it, but you have nearly every major artist across any genre of music has probably contributed to a video gaming soundtrack at one point or another. I've heard about full orchestras being commissioned to do some of the audio behind gaming, and especially going back to your question initially earlier, Nick, to Brad, adventure games in particular, the soundscape that is created by the music there, and that's where you bring in orchestras and bands and really are trying to create a mood. Is just amazing. There's some things that are out there, like if they just want you to be out in space and them trying to recreate that type of sound so you can actually believe that for 2 seconds that you're in space, a lot goes into that.
Okay. Being from New York, did you ever play the Wu-Tang Fighter game? You mentioned celebrities. That was one of my favorites.
It's horrible, but I did play it.
Yeah. I would buy anything those guys said. So I think there's one more thing I wanted to cover here, and I think this has been a great conversation that we could certainly pick up more. But I'm interested, Brad, to know, looking even past these consoles that are going to drop later this year, what do you view as the future of gaming, and specifically with immersive audio? Like, how does it all tie together? Where are we headed?
I'm really hopeful that there's going to be a push towards object-based audio for video games. Like the groundwork is pretty much already there. It's just getting the support from the studios and the mixing team and everything to really push this further. I mean, like I said in our prep call, that video games as an industry is bigger than movies. And so, every major first run movie and even a lot of non-first run movies are mixed in Atmos now. It's much more accessible. So I'm really hoping that there's that push towards object-based audio. And, the audio quality is really good, but getting something maybe with like a higher bit rate, being able to store these files, with less compression than they have now. I mean, they sound great, don't get me wrong, but, there are a few ways that they can improve upon that.
Yeah. Keenan, anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I think as you get more into virtual reality with gaming, and then there's supposed to be a lot of things coming down the pike. It's still probably a year or two out, I would say, but being able to get that type of level of technology into the audio aspect as well while you're doing virtual gaming, because most VR games now, they're still using the TV speakers. So being able to meld that and bring it out into a real system, I think it's going to just take it to a whole new level.
Yeah, I mean, you have your Oculus, you have the VR headsets coming out now. I'm actually probably looking 5-6 years down the road, but the full haptic suits where you strap up basically instead of holding the remote, and you get these little sensors that are like vibrating on you when you get shot. Like, that's what I see as the ultimate. But I think we're probably a little bit ways away from there. So, I don't know how much I should get my hopes up. So you definitely still need subwoofers and surround sound to get that full immersive effect in your gaming setup. But with that, Brad Pipkins, I really want to thank you for joining us today. You can check him out, Home Theater Gamer on YouTube. A lot of great educational content out there, product reviews, other good stuff. Really appreciate you joining us today, Brad. Thanks so much.
Brad,
thank you for having me.
You gave
Thank
us
you,
all a
guys.
new perspective on gaming. Really
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
And Keenan, I will talk to you tomorrow, but keep that bar stocked, because there'll be a day when we all want to come over there and enjoy a happy hour on you.
You're not going to scare me with a good time. Bring it.
Don't drink it all. Save a little for us.
I'll just find some.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time. We'll talk to you soon. Oh, let me fix my screen here. I thought that was very interesting. I mean, we hopefully we open some eyes to what the world of gaming means and what it can be, and we'll maybe see some comments down the road of some suggestions of games we should all buy. But we got backed up on the giveaways here a little bit, so I think we owe the folks another one. And for this one, we are going to be giving away the Prime Wireless Sound Base. As Larry mentioned, it's a 300-watt, 2-channel integrated amplifier with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity. Brings wireless streaming to any passive speaker. So really cool device here to add a wireless smart zone to your home theater. And our winner is from Facebook, Mr. Eric Lapp. Eric Lapp, you are the winner of a Prime Wireless Sound Base. Vince will be reaching out to you to get your information. So thank you so much.
Yes, congratulations.
And so we had a couple questions that spilled over from our last broadcast that I wanted to address here, because I think there's some great tips.
We're going to get back to home theater now?
We're getting back to home theater,
true?
although we will look at your questions for gaming. And if you guys want to go deeper into gaming, we can certainly dive in there. But I thought we gave a good sort of surface level overview of, what it's all about and what you can expect from some of the new stuff coming up.
I have to say,
Larry,
it got me more interested in gaming. It really did. I'm going to have to dig into that a little more.
I'm nervous. I want to try to put that picture on screen again, but I'm afraid I'm going to crash myself, so I won't do it. And, but Larry,
believe me, they all got it. They were saying things like marbles and solitaire. It was a little. They were more insulting than even you guys were.
The tumbleweed going down the road.
Yeah. So Larry, one of the questions that came up a couple times yesterday is the ARC channel. When you're talking about the setting and basically the TV input, can you define what ARC is and why it's important and what people should know about it?
Yeah, so ARC was created to kind of make life easy for more people.
What does it stand for, Larry? It's really called ARC.
Yeah, the audio return channel is what it is. Right. And that's for any audio that's being fed to your TV to return back to your surround sound receiver over HDMI. I personally don't use it in any of my rooms because I run everything through my receiver and do all of my streaming from external devices. But if you have a brand new 4K OLED, for instance, and that's where you stream your HBO or Amazon or Apple TV or whatever you stream from there, if you have that audio return going back to your receiver and it's capable of doing audio return, then that high resolution audio would come from your television and come back through your surround sound system.
And in fact, can I frame it up a little bit? On older TVs, ARC was just a convenience. It was for people that really, you didn't have enough HDMI inputs and outputs, and so this allowed you to use the same HDMI cable that was feeding the picture to your TV to feed the sound right back to your home theater receiver. But it was dumbed down, so the best it could do was Dolby Digital, the old-fashioned Dolby Digital that you get on a DVD. Wouldn't do any of the higher-end Dolby or DTS sound formats. Fast forward to today, and now we have E-ARC, and that is a much more sophisticated protocol. And so if you have, I would say, a TV that was manufactured within the last year or so, you have a much higher performance ARC, to the point that in some scenarios it can be better. For example, I have a 4K TV in my office. I'm using an older surround sound receiver that does the higher performance surround sound formats, but it doesn't do 4K. If I use my 4K TV's smart TV functions, I can have 4K and I can have high performance surround sound just by using the E-ARC format. So it has a really good use now, even for people who want the best possible home theater performance, more in the last year or so.
Well, I think you addressed the question that we see here from Chris on the screen here about how's the sound. Is there any degradation? And you're saying if it's a modern TV, then you're not really going to have to worry about that.
Well,
it depends on
I would say, I think you're going to always have better sound with an outboard device, such as an Apple TV or a Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, going into a surround sound receiver that does Dolby Atmos, DTSX, and those things. That's always going to be your first choice. But in a scenario where maybe it's a second TV, or you just don't have that high performance home theaters, you used to have the devil's alternative of, I don't get 4K if I want high performance sound. Now you don't have to have that. Now, if you have a 4K TV and you want to enjoy 4K content, you can do it using EARC, even if your home theater receiver isn't up to the minute. But if you have an up to the minute state-of-the-art home theater receiver, you'd probably be less likely to use it.
Yeah.
Larry, any thoughts to add on there? I know you were chomping there for a minute.
No, I was just saying I personally don't use EARC just because it's also, there's some streaming options that are on your TV that may not do Dolby Atmos, but they will on your Blu-ray player or
your Apple, especially Apple TV, which does lots of cool. I mean, I'm a big fan of Apple TV, and now the latest Amazon Prime Fire Stick. I'm going to say it wrong.
Pro or something?
4K. The 4K. That thing is cool. It has Dolby Atmos. It has 4K, and it's only $50, and it really can. As long as your home theater receiver can do that, it sounds and works amazingly well using EARC.
And I tend to recommend an Xbox One for anybody because it's about the same cost as a Apple TV, and it'll do the 4K discs, and it'll do all the Atmos streaming. And if you ever get into games, it's there. But if not, it's a great media console too.
So that brings up a good point. I mean, it's not really a question, but do you recommend using the native TV apps to do your streaming? And is there any sort of degradation of the signal quality there? Or do you prefer?
Sometimes you don't have a choice. In the scenario I have, until I got my Fire Stick that's 4K for my office TV, I didn't want to spend I don't sit around in my office when I'm supposed to be at work watching shows. I really need to say that in front of Larry and Nick. But now and again I'm working late and I have some streaming thing I want to do. A $50 Amazon 4K, okay, I could do that. And this thing allows me to have the 4K content and the best possible sound through EARC.
Yeah, and I think we're getting some recommendations for gaming consoles as the entertainment hub. So it sort of resonates with what we were saying earlier. So I think that's a good explanation of what ARC is and some of the streaming apps and how to use them. So I wanted to pivot here, and Larry, I know you are a big Universal Remote fan, and we all have remote clutter. I think everyone has it if you have a home theater. But what is sort of your, breaking point when you decide that you need a Universal Remote versus the stock remotes? Like, how do you make that decision, and what led up to it?
So I can tell you guys right now, I don't have a single stock remote in my house, period. Have not for more than 15 years. I have been a Logitech Harmony fan for, I guess, since they came out, because we have a family of 5, and not everybody when they were younger was technically adept, as we all are now. But think about your living room, and if you've got a TV, a Blu-ray player, a cable or satellite box, an Apple TV or a Fire Stick, there's at least 4 or 5 remotes running around in every single room. And if one of them disappears, then that product is not functional. So if you can get the opportunity to get into a smart remote, and they're not that expensive, I think they start about $40 to $50. Some of the ones I have get more expensive. And then we learned over years, because of 5 dogs and 3 boys, stop buying $400 remotes for the tile floor downstairs. But you get one remote and you go online, you program in, or even via an app, and program in what products you have: TV, Blu-ray player, surround receiver, your Xbox, PlayStation 5, whatever. You program that all into a web-driven setup, and then you plug in the remote and you have what's called activities. So you hit watch movie, and downstairs in my living room, my TV, my Blu-ray player, my receiver all come on, and one remote controls all of them. Then I can hit watch TV, and the Blu-ray player will shut off. My direct TV box will come on, and I've got control of all of those. And even in here in this office, or my bedroom, or each of my kids' rooms, they have remotes just so that they can control their streaming boxes, their satellite box, and their TV. Because honestly, I think all of you that have kids are tired of losing remotes. So it's a great way to just have one big one that doesn't disappear.
What about the learning curve for getting it set up? I mean, Gary, you're smirking. I don't know if you are the pile of remotes approach, or if you use a universal, but I'm curious. Like,
I use a Harmony too, and I like it, but I don't use it every day. I'm more likely to just use the remotes. And part of the reason is exactly what you just alluded to. I'm constantly swapping things in and out. I don't want to deal with changing things up. And what Larry's talking about is this thing called macros, where you're putting multiple commands into it. So that requires some degree of telling it what you want it to do. And for the most part, I'm fine with using multiple remotes, but I guess Larry would accuse me, and rightfully so, of being sometimes too old school.
Well, you don't like anything from the 80s, so I guess you're not too old school.
There's some truth to that.
So I think we have time for one more question before we do our giveaway. And this one actually came from last week. And I saw a couple in the pre-broadcast comments here about duals. And when you're blending duals, particularly if it's not the same subwoofer, what are the drawbacks? What should you know about combining 2 subwoofers that maybe aren't the same brand or the same type? And Gary, I'll kick this one to you first, because not everyone can buy 2 of the same exact subwoofers. So what's some good advice people can take if they need to blend duals that aren't necessarily the same exact model?
Sorry, don't do it. I am not a fan of having 2 brands in the same room. Just not. And I'll tell you why. And in fact, I don't even want you to have, and I know some of our community does this. Sorry, guys. I don't want you to have a sealed box and a ported box in the same room. Here's why. When you go dual, when you have 2 subwoofers, you are doing it to basically have the 2 subwoofers take control of the room and smooth out all the peaks and valleys of bass response no matter where you're sitting. That's a great reason to do it. But you want those 2 subwoofers to pretend as though they're a single subwoofer, just in 2 different locations. Now, SVS subwoofers are pretty much built to the same specifications. So for example, if you had an SB2000 Pro and an SB3000 in the same room, I would be okay with that, because they're generally cut from the same cloth. They're going to have the same characteristics, the same relative performance characteristics. That's going to be okay. I think, though, having 2 different brands, you're going to have, you can't pretend that's the same subwoofer. My advice would be use the better one in your main home theater. Take the one that's not as good, that's not your favorite, use it somewhere else in your house, or sell it.
I think we opened up a can of worms here, because I'm seeing all sorts of what about this and what about this. But I'm going to throw one specific scenario out here: a PB16 in sealed mode with an SB16 Ultra. How do you feel about that one?
That might, they're very similar in characteristics. I think I would be fine with that.
If it's in sealed mode, though.
If it's in sealed mode. Yeah. I think that's fine.
Well, hopefully we provided some illumination on there, and everyone who's asking, what about a PB3 with a PB2000 Pro and all that. I think you sort of laid the groundwork there for the best decision. If you have questions, by all means, reach out to our team, and our sound experts are very
I'm going to
helpful.
say if it's a PB and they're both PBs and they're both SVS, and if they're, keep it within 3 or 4 years of each other, and so that we have a similar technology platform,
Yeah.
I think you're going to be totally fine, and it's going to sound great. I'm not trying to be overly a stickler, and I promise to our community, I'm not trying to shame you into buying more things than you want to buy. I'm just trying to help you have the most convincing. It's not just about overpowering you with bass. You want it to be convincing. You want it to feel like it's two of the same subwoofer.
Well put. And with that, we're going to give away a subwoofer, our newest sealed cabinet subwoofer, the SB2000 Pro, award-winning. And this one we are going to YouTube for our winner, and it is Mr. Tony Berger. Tony Berger, you have yourself an SB2000 Pro subwoofer. Congratulations, Vince. We'll reach out to you, get your information. So with that, our next virtual audiophile happy hour is going to be in 2 weeks on October 29th, which is a couple days before Halloween. So we may have some fun planned for that, maybe some horror movie recommendations from the Larry, who I know is a bit of an aficionado. We'll be coming back then Thursday.
We might have a double secret special guest who you will have to. Is that too crazy of an idea? I already threw this idea at these guys today, and nobody stood up and cheered. But I think we should do it like The Mask, and you guys have to guess who the guest is from the answers of the questions. What do you think?
It's such a super secret guest. We don't even know who it is yet.
We haven't decided.
We are going to make it special. So maybe we'll get Michael Myers or something, and we can have some fun with that. But again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Always appreciate the great questions. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can next time. And as always, thank you for joining in. We'll talk to you down the road.
Thanks, everybody.
Night, everybody.